Good morning, everyone. I figured if I'm going to try and make videos of daily inspiration, maybe I should look to the daily source of Chabad inspiration, which is Sefer HaYom Yom. This is Yom Yom HaMavur rather. And it says in today's Hayom Yom is actually textual emendations and things like that, which I don't know if I'm going to get into. I'd have to become a grammatician to make any relevance to us. But in yesterday's Hayom Yom, it speaks about making a living and how you have to have faith in God that He's going to provide. So it goes like this. I don't know if many of my viewers prefer Hebrew. Well, they can get some. From those services of God that pertain to a businessman is to arouse in himself, to arouse in himself the absolute faith, confidence, and trust in the one who provides a livelihood for all humanity, and all basar includes even animals here. Because God is going to give us a very abundant livelihood. You have to know this and have, this is an aveda, it's a way to serve God and having trust that God is going to provide for us. And then it gets even more intense because it says, and you have to be happy and joyous, as if your parnasa is already provided for you, as if you have it in the bank, you could draw it out whenever you need it. Reb Zusha and Napoli was famous for living like that, and it's obviously more pronounced in tzaddikim. They have the faith in God, but it's our challenge to have some type of faith that's equivalent to that in our lives, and what we did yesterday has to be something that is not pertinent to today. We always have to leap in bounds beyond what. I heard an interesting Torah vart on why you can't have steps going up to the Mizbeach. This is a very interesting concept. It has to be a ramp, a smooth, diagonal ramp. Reminiscent, of course, of the Rambam's Menorah, but that's not the point here. Maybe that's another time's discussion. So it can't have steps, because if you have to take steps, it's inappropriate to. It's a revealing, even if they're totally covered, it's considered some kind of an inappropriate behavior, and you can just, it's got a visual that goes along with it, but I don't have to spell that out. The point is that a step like that represents a stretch. If a person takes on an aveda that is not something that they could really reach in a gradual way, they have to be careful or sensitive to the idea that they might be going too far for themselves. And therefore the ramp has to be a steady incline, because every day you have to progress and advance and get higher in your Avodas Hashem, serving God in a more real way, in a way that means more to us every day. And therefore it has to be gradual. But the very fact that each day we're created anew, and we have an opportunity to reinvent ourselves in terms of how we relate to God, if we take that really seriously, then we could live with that inspiration throughout the entire day in a way that makes yesterday irrelevant. So, and that doesn't contradict the idea of taking on more than you can, because to you, you're just going through a daily seder, an order of the day. It's an incredible thing that the Jewish religion defines an exact way to conduct yourself throughout the day, in every moment of your day, and that's how the Shulchan Aruch is arranged in chronology throughout your day. So you start out with a heidah, a submission to God, Moedei ani lefanecha, Melech, we recognize Hashem's a king, and then we go throughout the day, and in terms of taking that submission and making it something that we actually enjoy, until you reach the Shemona Esrei. And then you're in a state of complete oneness, and you don't have to think of it as an Aveda anymore. You ask Hashem before you enter the Amidah, the Shemona Esrei, you say, Adonai Sfosai Tiftach, Hashem, you should open my lips. Ufi yagid tilasacha, and my mouth will say your praise, or my prayer to you. So we're asking Hashem to actually animate our bodies. And then that's the type of unity where we don't really exist anymore. And the main thing there is not to work on your kavanah, to work on your intention and your desire to get close to Hashem, because you're with Hashem at that moment. It's like you're standing before the King. It's a complete transparent unity where you don't have to work on yourself so much anymore. And interestingly, this goes well with what the Rebbe says in another Hayom Yom. We learned today's Hayom Yom, or it was yesterday's actually. It was Tez Zayin Adar Sheni. But in another Hayom Yom, it speaks about if a person is not aware of all the kavanas of the Arizal. Arizal was a middle-aged? No, he lived in the Middle Ages rather. He was a Mekubal, and he's basically responsible for all the modern Kabbalistic thought that we have today. And he prescribes kavanas that, I mean, there's other, obviously people took these ideas and developed them, but there are kavanas of the Arizal that specific spiritual intents, I don't know too much about it, to be honest, and you're supposed to have certain things in mind, but the Rebbe writes about that is what tefillah really is. When you're trying to connect to God in a very technically beautiful way, in a very elegant way, that's the way you do it, because that's the original intent of the whole way Anshe Knesset HaGedela established the tefillah. They made it, the sages made a certain plan of what the best approach to prayer is. So they instituted that, and Arizal encoded what was a secret type of approach, or the Torah describes it as a ladder. It's a ladder that has defined Kabbalistic intentions, where you think about permutations of God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Each time you say Hashem's name, it has different relevance. But the Rebbe says, my point is not to get into that, because I'm not an expert on that, and I can't even talk about it. But the Rebbe said that if you don't know that, you have to have in mind that you wish that your tefillah was received as if you had all the kavanas that Kabbalah defines and prescribes for the proper approach to davening. That's important, but you don't have to actually have that in our times to feel accomplished as a person trying to pray to his God or her God. That rather it's enough to know that there is such a thing and we wish that we had it. So that suggests something, and this is going to go on to a bit of a rant, but it's really related. That suggests that there is a type of completion that is enacted or manifest just by our desire. The Baal Shem Tov is famous for saying that a person is where their desire is. So if they desire to be with God through prayer, then He's actually there. You've already attained your goal just by wanting it. The desire itself is, in a spiritual sense at least, the goal. So given that we're talking about a spiritual topic, it really has pertinence, because if you want to have wealth and you don't have wealth, then you know whether you have it or not. So it could be if that's your intention to make wealth, then you would have perhaps a spiritual concept of wealth that corresponds to that. But that's not as relevant as having a spiritual goal that you've already attained simply in virtue of wanting it. So here the Rebbe says, if you wish that your tefillah was, your prayer to Hashem included all the proper kavanas, the intentions that, according to Kabbalah, your desire itself is accomplishing that. So here you see the completion of the soul, that the soul is complete, and the person who doesn't necessarily, a person is made up of a body and soul. So in the physical world, he could have wealth or he might not. He could check his bank account in a sense and get his net worth and establish whether the person has wealth or not. It's just a fact in the world. But in a spiritual sense, you might not be able to identify it as much because we're coming from this world. But these concepts exist on a spiritual level all the way up to the very essence of God, where there is no, that's Ad Lo Yada. And Ad Lo Yada of what we achieved in Purim, hopefully everyone achieved it. Ad Lo Yada means it's going beyond our ability to comprehend. And at that level, then every idea ceases to have meaning, and then it's just the experience of the oneness of Hashem. It's not even a person to experience it, or some kind of consciousness. It is just that. So that is a very powerful idea. But my point is, it's not Purim right now, though we are bringing the spirit of Purim throughout the whole year, but there's a ladder now to get there. There's even a ladder on Purim, but it's just much easier to climb to the top. Throughout the year, there's steps to take, and one of them is to daven with kavana. And so if you have the desire to do that, as I was saying, it's as if you had maybe the Rebbe, since he's the one that gave us this advice, according to his soul, what he gives to us spiritually, that could be one of the things that he gives us, is our ability. Actually, I've heard this in other teachings of the Rebbe, that the Rebbe himself, the Rebbe of each generation, is the one who connects your tefillah to God. It's what Moshe says, I'm standing between you and God. And so it's the question is, doesn't that seem like it's a mamutza, it's an intermediary? And in Judaism, that's like the antithesis of Judaism, is because every Jew has a connection directly to God. But that's only if you see yourself as separate from other Jews. But if you're one body, and the head of your body happens to be the spectacular, great neshama, the leader of each generation, the Moshe Rabbeinu of each generation. In our generation, it's the Rebbe. And in that neshama gives shleimus to each person. Here I'm talking about tefillah, prayer to God. So our prayers, if they're lacking Kabbalistic intent, the Rebbe, it's an idea that I have, and I've seen it supported in different teachings of the Rebbe. But the Rebbe takes our tefillah and completes whatever it's lacking. All you have to do is have sincere intent and have the desire that it should be perfect and whole and beautiful. True prayer is beautiful. It says that Sandal, it's a malach, I think it's also the same malach as Matat, Rabbi Manan told me. Different names for the same very general, powerful angel. He connects the letters of tefillah to God like a crown. He makes a crown out of precious gems of the words and letters of our tefillah. He takes those words that are gems and makes a crown out of it. Interestingly, a gem is daimem. It's a mineral life. It's a mineral kingdom, rather. And that is the least animated kingdom in the world. There's mineral, plant, animal, and human. Each level is more dynamic and animated than the previous one, at least in some major respect, some different dimension. So mineral is unique in that it doesn't even move. And that becomes the crown. Of course, a crown is made out of metals and gems. So it's very interesting because in Kuntres Aveda it says that aspect of our tefillah is the voice of our tefillah as opposed to our kavana. I spoke mostly this morning about kavana, but there's an entirely different aspect of tefillah, which is our voice. And I think I thought to speak about this is because the beauty of our tefillah is expressed vocally. And I don't have the most beautiful singing voice, though I am a Levi, so I have to work on it. But there's a beauty in every person's sincere prayer. When a child is crying for something and a parent hears it, it may not sound beautiful to the ears, but it's so precious to the parent if he cares about his child, which is a natural, healthy situation, that a parent should care about his child. And if his child is crying, then it might not sound beautiful, but it's beautiful and precious to the parent. And the parent runs to the child. So our tefillah, even if our voice isn't trained and spectacular and beautiful and elegant and refined and sweet, then the sincerity is really the focus, obviously, in that person. And that is precious. Not everybody is going to be a nightingale. Is that the type of bird that sings beautifully? A canary? Anyways, maybe if I'm talking about canaries, it's probably time to go. It looks like tefillah starts in 4 minutes in the yeshiva in Toronto. So have a great day, everyone.